Well, Senator Brinson, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your willingness to serve our state and certainly our nation. I know you're a little bit of a military background. Tell us about yourself.
Well, a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. I am a New Bern native. Grew up outside of New Bern, Craven County, in the woods of Bryce's Creek, if folks know about Craven County. And 10th generation New Bernian. All of them have lived in and around New Bern in some parts of their life and history of service. There's some, farmers and hog farmers in there, and policemen and firemen and grandparents that were in the World War II, and my dad was in the National Guard, so kind of a history of service there. And so I ended up graduating from New Bern High and then getting an appointment to West Point.
That's incredible.
And after graduating there, spent 28 years in the active Army, serving all over the world.
So why did you decide on the Army? What was it about that appointment that really intrigued you? You wanted to go do that?
Well, honestly, it was my dad. Being in Craven County, I didn't know it at the time, but they didn't have any money to send me to college, and that was kind of one of the things that we thought about. But my dad apparently knew about West Point, and so he came to me one day and said, "Hey, have you considered one of the academies?" And so and it happened to be the day of the Army-Navy game, so I think he had a bit of a plan.
No doubt.
And so we watched the Army-Navy game, and then I started finding out about the academy and thought, hey, I have a mind for service, and service to the nation is what I'd like to do. And then the college scholarship came along with it.
Right.
And if you remember back in the late 80s when this was going on, we were in a recession. And so there were college grads coming out and not being able to find jobs. So it was kind of one of those circumstances that worked out for me.
So when did you graduate West Point?
91.
So you came out right at the time Desert Storm was happening.
Yes, my senior year actually was when Desert Storm was happening, and of course we're like everybody else watching it on TV, and rumors flying around about early graduation, and those sorts of things. But that of course didn't happen. But so I came out right after Desert Storm. And
you spent most of your time, I know you certainly had other jobs, but from what I've seen and read, you were a helicopter pilot.
I was a helicopter pilot, yes. Flew Blackhawks.
That's kind of cool.
A lot of time. It is. And yes, there is a bit of jealousy when you see some of the Blackhawks and helicopters flying around.
Right.
So I miss being up in the air and seeing things from that perspective, but I don't miss all the paperwork and the stuff that goes along with it to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, I know, think about helicopters. I mean, you've had to use a lot of them in Western NC recently. In fact, I heard something about there was a National Guard incident where a helicopter flew a little too close and they had to abort a landing. But, thinking about Western NC, I know you're serving the unexpired term of Jim Perry.
Yes.
So you've already been sworn in by the governor. And so you're on office, but you're running for the next 2 years.
Yes.
Tell us about what's happening in Raleigh as it relates to our friends and neighbors in Western NC.
So, yes. So the unexpired term expires in December, which is why I'm on the ballot in November for my own term starting in January, should I be elected. But October 9th, we were up in Raleigh and passed the first iteration of a relief package, which essentially is about $250 million that will go to the government, the executive branch, the agencies, to give them some flexibility for the effort. There's about $16 million that's going to the Department of Instruction to help out with salaries for the nutrition folks that work the cafeterias, and then about $3 million to change, or not, for the elections board, so that they can change some of the precincts that have been affected, rent out other places, or maybe tents or generators or something like that.
Our assistant publisher, Christy Kell, and I were having a conversation this morning about what the changes for the election are going to be, and some of the things that y'all put in place, giving the local boards a little bit more autonomy to change locations and early in voting locations. Some elections boards will actually be set up in other counties as well. So a lot of things to give them a little bit more autonomy in making those decisions.
Well, not just autonomy, but flexibility, because many of the poll locations may not even be available anymore.
Right.
And even if they were available, the citizens that they are serving may not be able to get there.
Right.
And so the idea of giving the local county boards flexibility to make those decisions, and just to clear up a few things, it has to be a bipartisan majority, meaning that one party or the other can't just say, hey, this is the way we're going to do things. They have to have agreement from the other side to make those changes. But yeah, one of the unusual things is to have a precinct in an adjacent county that might actually be better accessible, more accessible for the people in that county. The other one that we added that I thought was very important is the ability to turn in, for those 25 affected counties, the ability to turn in absentee ballots to any board of elections. Because we understand here in the East, some of those people are displaced, and they've moved to the center of the state, or they've moved to the East out here for the time being. And so while they may be able to get a absentee ballot, they can turn it into the local board of elections by 7:30. Personally, turn it in by 7:30 to their local board of elections, and that board of elections will be able to log it as a valid ballot, and then it's on the board of elections to get it to their county of residence
when they do the canvassing
the canvassing to get counted. And so that type of flexibility is, people have lost their homes, some of them lost loved ones. We don't want them to also lose their ability to cast their ballot and have their voice heard.
Well, when you think about some of the issues let's bring back to the East a little bit. That this is a fairly new district. It's Lenoir, Craven, and Beaufort counties.
Yes.
And each of those counties are very unique and distinct in their own right.
They are.
It seems like that would put a challenge on you and possibly even your opponent to understand the needs of each of these areas. And you're new to the Lenoir County audience. You're thinking about something that's really affected the economic development in our area has been the global transport. It's been a conversation for many years, decades actually.
Absolutely.
But they've had a couple big wins lately. Fly Exclusive, headquartered right here in Kinston, is now on the stock exchange. It's a publicly traded company. FRC East, a federal and state joint program. Tell us about what you see the future of the global transport and how it might impact Eastern North Carolina.
Well, here's the thing. I'm uniquely qualified and experienced to talk about what's going on with FRC East. Because being a helicopter guy, when I wasn't flying, I was doing maintenance and supply. So totally understand what FRC East's mission is. And as I was on the New Bern City Council prior to this, I was part of the Military Community Council at Cherry Point. And so we were getting quarterly updates from FRC East as to what was going on, and from the base commander at Cherry Point to know what's going on there. And so the 300 to 400 jobs that are coming into Global Trans Park under this FRC East hangar umbrella is going to be a game changer, not just for Lenoir County, but for the region. Because these are skilled jobs that now, there's a groundbreaking for Lenoir Community College there for Aerospace Center of Excellence to start that workforce development trail so that, they learn those skills and then there's a job right there for them. Like I said, 300 to 400 jobs. That can't just come from Lenoir County. And the median salary is about $70,000. So we're talking about good, well-paying jobs. And the same thing is happening at Cherry Point. They are expanding, FRC East is expanding at Cherry Point for F-35 program. They're expecting another 300 to 400 jobs in Craven County.
Right.
And then, so that's 600 to 800, but what they're expecting is in 5 years to have about 1,200 jobs just because of the turnover. Because people come and go and they take jobs in different places. So with a 900 to 1,200 job growth, that's got to come from the region. And so it not only lifts Lenoir County, it lifts many of the other counties around us because people are going to come in and take those jobs.
And you mentioned, I love our community college system here, and we're real lucky, Lenoir, Green, and Jones, to have Lenoir Community College. They've really adapted to the needs of the workforce and with the education that come through our school systems here. What do you see, you think about education and its impact on the economy? Are we funding our schools enough? Are we giving not just public schools, but community colleges enough resources to adapt, to learn, whether it's technology or paying teachers or whatever it is?
Well, that's what I think the state is. Because, in our public school system, they actually have 3 funding streams, one from the federal level, one from the state level, and one from the county level. And how the boards of education end up using those is up to that board, because they have the ability to move some of that around. I am proud of our community college systems and some of the synergy. I've already spoken with the county manager and chairman of the Board of Commissioners. I've already talked to Dr. Rusty Hunt, the president of Lenoir Community College. And I'm excited about one of the programs that they're trying to put together, which is a new bus garage system, which will both benefit the community college because they're going to treat it as a workforce development and say, hey, let's have classes on diesel, in the future electric, gas engines in order to develop those skills. But they're going to be working on the public school buses, who need mechanics.
A joint effort with the
joint effort
system.
Between the two. And so those are the types of creative solutions that we need in days where inflation is going out of control and the cost of goods is going higher, not just for us as individuals, but for governments too. Inflation knows no bounds. And so we want to be able to use that synergy to come up with creative solutions so we don't have to raise taxes in order to do things. And that's a conservative approach to it. So I'm kind of excited about that.
And thinking about the education and tying a little bit into public safety, mental health, school safety, public safety, and I don't mean just the policing, the sheriff, but I know you've had some conversations about the border and its impact on immigration policies. I mean, I just opened up a can of worms of a bunch of different topics, but it seems like they're all kind of interrelate. Give us your thoughts on mental health, school safety, and public safety as well.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, I am absolutely a fan of our SROs, our school resource officers. I think we ought to have one in every single school, not just high schools and middle schools. We got to get them to every school. One, because that's a public safety aspect for our kids, to have an officer there and also to be there to deal with some of the issues that are going on. Like you alluded to, mental health within our schools. One of the things that I am campaigning on, particularly we have Kinston Veterans Home, a state veterans home, and they have no mental or behavioral health services, none. And so when a veteran goes into a mental or behavioral health crisis, they can't keep him there because he or she is a danger to himself or to others. And so they take them to the hospital and there aren't available mental health services there either. So that veteran is either sedated or restrained or both. And so one of the things that I want to do is look at our state veterans homes and either carve out a portion of one of them to have mental or behavioral health services, or we need to do public-private partnerships for those services. Because at that point, it's an acute problem, but that also means that there wasn't a ongoing service for that. And then coming back to youth mental health and behavioral health, once we figure out that model using the veterans, because it's a much smaller population, then we can take that as a model and apply it to our youth mental and behavioral health, particularly in our rural counties, because every county can't have one. But if there is some sort of public-private partnership, then we can start to address the youth mental health and behavioral health problems, because I think that should be external to our schools. We shouldn't be putting medical and behavioral mental health in our schools, because our school administrators, they're just not trained for that, and they don't have the expertise to oversee those issues.
As you think about, I know you're already serving, this election on November 5th, it's a big election. You've got the top of the ticket being the presidential, then the gubernatorial, and then you've got a U.S. House and then NC Senate, NC House, as well as other local stuff. I know you're already serving, but if you could think of, as we start to close, if Bob Brinson is elected as senator this election, what would your top 2 or 3 priorities be on day one?
Well, that's what we already talked about. Top number one, and that was getting to the veteran mental health issue, particularly in the population in our state veterans homes that the state has a caretaker over.
Right.
And then use that as a model to address our youth and mental and behavioral health crisis. So that those would probably be number 1 and number 2.
Right.
And I realize that is a very complex and very long-term solution because there are so many stakeholders in that, to include our parents. And so I am very well committed to starting that conversation and taking a bite at a time and to figure out how to solve that issue.
And if you want to look in the camera and talk to the voters, but if you can give a closing argument as to why someone should vote for you, what would you tell people?
Well, I'm Bob Brinson. I'm running for state senate because I'm a public servant. I take constituent services seriously, which is how I can work for you in your issues that you have with the state level government. It's a complex bureaucracy, but that's why I'm there to help you through those things. And my mentality is a neighbor serving neighbors, and that's what I want to do for you, and that's why you should vote for me. But I also have the hardworking mentality to address the complex and difficult issues that we have as a state and build the teams that, bipartisan teams that we need to pass that type of legislation.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for your service to our country, as I said earlier, and also your willingness to serve us now. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The only thing I would add is it's a long ballot this year.
It is.
Like the
2 pages,
you said
I
the
believe.
state, and you said the state house and the state senate. We're on the backside. We're on page 2. So it's, hey, please turn your ballot over and finish.
You got State Attorney General, the auditor.
Yeah, all of
insurance
the
commissioner.
council of state is
Right.
on there, and then there are 4 statewide judicial positions, and that's kind of where the page break is. And then you have state house and state senate on the backside. Then
Right.
all your district and local. So it's like, please turn, start on the back. And one of the things
That's a
I'm
good thought.
finding also is many people don't know there's a constitutional amendment on there this year.
Actually, I have not heard that. What is it?
Yes, the constitutional amendment, basically, if you vote for the constitutional amendment, then it will change the Constitution to read that only citizens of the United States
Okay.
can vote in our elections.
Yes, I did know that. It was basically affirming state law, more or less, and trying to make it part of the Constitution now,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Got you. So
Exactly.
if it's part of the Constitution, it's a little bit harder to amend
Yes.
at that point.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, thank you for that heads up on that, and turn the ballot over. And,
Yes.
and start there. It's a good thought. Well, thank you, Senator. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah.